it was just one of those. I don't know. We can talk. We'll get into it, but it blew me away. Like I was like, wow. Like both
I
of
don't
these
think
picks,
I've ever
John.
seen Reseda spelled out before.
Great job, John. Like both of these picks were just.
Well, this week I did something that, can be very dangerous, as we've learned, which is to pick two movies that I hadn't seen. But I figured, Bogdanovich, one's a classic Academy Award winner. How bad could it be? And then the other one was more of like, I brought it up because it was his first, and Last Picture Show is his second, and everybody was like, yeah, let's look at targets. So it satisfied my curiosity, and I goddamn, I got so much out of this film.
Same here, man.
This movie has no business being as good as it is.
But thank you. That's exactly it's a low budget, almost throwaway film, but it was so compelling.
It kind of has one foot in the B movie exploitation world and the other in the sort of the indie.
I'd say that first foot is up to the knee at least.
Well, sure. Part of that is because Roger Corman.
I think it's more indie.
Roger Corman.
I feel him doing like all the freeway shots and the drive-in shots. I feel it's more indie. Like he's kind of out there with his
or even like French avant-garde. You can tell the guy was a film theorist.
I
freeway stuff was shot guerrilla style. They didn't have a permit.
Yeah, I
didn't know that.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that, like
this movie was made for $130,000. Like,
that's insane.
Even back then, it wasn't a lot of money.
And 100,000 of that went to Boris Karloff,
who was there for 2 days.
Yeah,
no, not true.
They had already.
No, he did 5 days. He did 5 days.
5 days.
He took a pay cut for the other 3 days because he loved the script.
Because he said, "Oh my God, I'm not being treated like some sort of weird monster guy. I think this is an actual acting job. So let's stick with it and see where it goes."
Yeah, and I read how he was like in a wheelchair when they weren't shooting, and then he would like stand up with his cane.
He made it long enough to see the movie come out and receive a lot of acclaim, which is nice.
Yeah, and then he died.
Dan, he gets to slap the shit out of a guy.
Dude, I love his bitch slapping.
Well, that was like something I almost had to stop myself from just texting you guys. If only every mass shooter incident was thwarted by Boris Karloff just slapping you in the face.
I know.
I rolled, man. I rolled. Then I rolled it back and watched it 2 more times.
No, but same here. I actually had to watch it again. It's almost like a psychedelic film where the guy is trying to shoot somebody and he looks in the screen.
Oh, it's so hilarious.
It almost like you're expecting a spin take, like it was amazing.
Well, then he shoots at the screen.
It's amazing. Yeah, because he gets confused and he starts shooting at Boris Karloff on the screen. Walking towards him at the same time. It's brilliant, man.
I
think
the brilliance of that is it's showing a man who has actually gone psychotic, right? I mean, that's what works so well.
Is this like the first Vietnam veteran gone crazy and shooting people movie?
It's supposed to be.
It might be.
Is he a Vietnam veteran though?
Yeah.
Oh hell, he just got back, man.
He's supposed to be.
Oh, I missed it.
He's a little young.
No, they talk about it. He just got back and he's got a screw loose and.
Because it's pretty unmotivated in terms of what you see on screen. It's kind of a I don't like Mondays kind of psycho killer thing.
Banality of evil.
The banality of evil.
But also in '68, the Vietnam War was going full swing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Ted.
It's a little taxi driver too. It's
I
like
get weird thoughts.
Yes, little taxi driver.
I have weird thoughts.
But that casting is so perfect because I believed that actor so much that he would do this kind of shit. Like there was something about that
I like that he wasn't overacting with crazy with his eyes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like when he shoots his girlfriend or his wife,
his wife.
That's some cold shit, man.
He's just like bang, and then his mom comes
and his fucking mom.
Yeah,
I know.
Takes her out.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And there was something the other guy. Was that like a delivery boy?
Yeah. Grocery delivery.
Yeah, grocery boy. Wrong place, wrong time.
One thing about
Anybody else think that this would have made an awesome double bill with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No, he was.
Actually, I think it might be
Tarantino was borrowing stuff. He was borrowing a lot. There's a lot of scenes and driving along the freeway.
Same period of time, same freeway, same freeway exits.
Yes, same freeway.
Except
it was the 101 and the 405.
Except this was real, not a recreation.
10, okay.
Yeah, it might be a better double bill with Gus Van Sant's Elephant or something like that.
I would pair it with Falling Down
or Slackers.
Falling
the
Down.
Area. That's right around the reservoir in the south part of the valley, not far from Sherman Oaks. I know that area pretty well.
But this was like when you realize that this was '68 and the quality of the film. Like when I watched it, I was like, this is this is like a prophecy, you know, of America. Like this is like he was on something.
Well, this had already happened.
Sure,
Yeah,
but I just mean, but no one had could predict, or maybe they could, but like that by 2014 that it happened every fucking month. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's ridiculous. And here it is.
Yeah, it was specifically based on the Austin, Texas tower
What's his
shooter.
name? Charles Pierce? No, the freeway guy.
Charles Whitman.
The freeway shooter.
Oh, it's based on that too.
Oh, really? Who is it? Where was that?
That just happened.
Oh, okay.
No, there was a freeway shooter. I saw this in the IMDb. I could look up the news. There was a guy that basically did what he did, was just picking people off on the freeway.
Right.
Yeah, that shit still happens. It's weird. It happened in the East Bay like 2 years ago.
And then
there was a guy in Phoenix who was going around. I don't think they ever caught him either.
Yeah.
He was going around shooting people on freeways.
Well, look at it. It's like a video game. You're up on top of the tower. You're untouchable. You never see the faces of the people you're shooting, and they're just going by like little moving targets.
But you would figure that the intimacy of the killing would get more
actually
as it
this
goes on.
Did
it goes
anyone
the opposite
see...
way, where it gets less intimate. He looks his wife and his mom and the delivery boy in the eyes and shoots them,
right?
And then he goes to the nameless, faceless people, and in the end they're in the dark, like he's shooting at people he can't even see.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Did anyone see this would actually be a good double bill with Blue Caprice?
Yeah.
All
right.
Did anyone see that?
Yeah, that's
those were those
DC shooter.
Yeah, those two. Yeah, the DC shooter who recruited the kid, and he talked the kid into shooting. That scene when they're, if anyone's seen that, it's worth watching. And there's a scene where the kid's in the trunk. Do you remember that, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
God.
where they put the gun through.
Right. They cut out the hole of the keyhole, or not the keyhole, but maybe the emblem of the car, and so the kid could be in the trunk and have the barrel. And so people coming out of a supermarket, and he would just pick them off.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's horrific. And that was a true story.
That's messed up.
I thought this movie was definitely, like, editing definitely helped this movie a lot.
Damn, yes.
Like, if you actually take all of the shit that's from The Terror, B-roll, like, yes, we love our projectionist, but that's an awful lot of projectionist. Like,
God,
the
it's
actual,
so much projectionist.
It was totally
actual like movie that was shot in service of the script that was written in that 129 minutes is probably maybe less than 90. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think this movie should have been a 45-minute TV episode. Like, there's so much fucking filler in this movie.
There's a lot.
I don't. But see, if you made it a 45-minute television episode, it would be just that. It wouldn't be a film, and I consider this a film.
That's funny. It's
you
because
missed that argument.
I thought the movie was really tight, because you're hearing half the movie, which is not the story about the boy killer. Most of the movie is about I've got my notes here.
Boris Karloff's
Byron Orloff.
Boris Karloff not wanting to make a movie, and the Peter Bogdanovich character trying to convince him to make a movie.
Right.
And that's mostly what I loved about it, is that this is a movie so much about movies and show business. You know, it starts and ends with the film that Karloff was in, that they had to use the clips from.
Right. Strangely, this would be a good double bill with Crimes and Misdemeanors.
It would be,
Woody Allen's movie.
Because a multiple storyline thing.
Yeah, because you have like a killer murder storyline and then a love romance storyline in that movie, and here you have
storylines. The structure is interesting because the two storylines don't meet until the very end.
Yeah, right. And barely that exactly. Now, one thing the movie gave away was its low budget. Jay knows how cheap the interiors were in this thing.
I was just gonna say, there's a point where I'm like, I think this is all literally one set: the office corridor and this house. And then I noticed the carpet. I'm like, that carpet is not tacked down. It's just
thrown down.
And what do they do? They fucking have a shot where they put the camera right up on it, so you can see how cheap it is.
But it's that was a fantastic scene. That was the first scene where I went, this is actually much better than some of its parts.
Well, that's why it can't be a 45-minute TV show, because he creates atmosphere in this film.
The suburban sprawl in this era is really cheap. Like they're building these houses so fast and so cheap. So having cheap carpet in a house like that is very common.
No, it's not unlikely. The thing is, I'm wondering how authentic it looks, because I can think of films from '68 that shows interiors, and they always look a lot more slick. They look tons more slick than this. No, and maybe this is closer to actual reality. Who knows?
I think maybe cheap is missing the point that Polly Platt was the person who was doing the production design.
Yes.
Those colors inside that house were very carefully picked. The props,
the purple,
sparse, kind of emptiness to the place.
And also, we're gonna get into this in the second film too. But Bogdanovich is really tapping into sort of, you know, the America of a time period and the America like this sort of false suburban dream, right?
Well, an intense
like this
bleakness.
Yeah, like
they're so bleak.
And you can like in this movie, the set design, like the scene that's behind John there, like there, you know, the nuclear family, the American, there's so much subtext I think there, or so much commentary that's underneath the surface. And I think the cheapness of the sets lends to that, because really they got everything right in terms of the wardrobe and how like doorknobs being slightly smaller than they are now.
There's
like
no
there's so
doorknobs. There's a lot of doors that have no doorknobs.
And there's just like different weird things like that. The carpet, and he, you know, him pulling up to the house in the beginning, and he goes in and doesn't talk to anyone. He just walks through. Like, it just gave me that whole thing. Just gave me the sense of this is like suburbia, and he's in hell, like a personal hell. Like it just felt, I don't know, man. I think that Bogdanovich is like he was onto something. Like he was like a film reviewer first, right? And then he became like a filmmaker.
He's a playwright and an essayist.
Yeah.
But part of it's like the walls and the interior the house was kind of lavender to pink.
It was purple.
You want to get to talk about trapped in Femaleville. This guy who was in the Vietnam War and was in Guyville, ends up in there. And I'm not saying that, I don't know if the argument is being made that this was like some sort of like a reaction to being to his domesticity and that kind of thing, but it might be.
I think part of it is because I think all that. No, I think part of it is, Scott. Because I think all that like, yes, sir, how are you doing? Oh, great. No, I just want to work on the car. It's like that whole, like, America was obsessed with like, no, everything's great. And we're all, yes, hi. And everything is good. And let's have dinner and say grace. And then we go to bed and we, yes.
And the housewives were all on meth and the husbands were all drunk all the time.
Yeah. And so there's no communication. There's no mental health. There's no like, and so
some of the kids just saw through it. Yes, Mrs. Cleaver.
Well, also the dude looked like a surfer boy. He looked wholesome. You look at him. He wasn't like wild hair with like a tick in his eye like you see later on.
But he was just subtly off. He was
off, but it was subtly.
Because he looked like that and talked like that and wore that tie and had that sheen, no one looked at him twice. Even when he was like, I'd like 300 rounds, please, and charge it to my dad. And like, he's worried that they're going to like,
that's why the script is
that was
quite
nuts.
Good. Well, and the first, like, and this is a saying that became an American saying, like the script is quite good, because the first time when he buys the rifle and he's like testing it out and he can see, you know, Boris Karloff across the street. The guy says, and he says you have an honest face, which is something that we say in America when you're like in a sales,
you have no ass.
White people talk to white people.
You have an honest face, so it's totally fine. It's like Bogdanovich is really playing up this whole like American, you know, middle class, like it's insane.
This movie definitely transcends the cheapness, and I will say I'm not 100%. Sure Bogdanovich should have been in it.
No.
He
did all right.
I don't think he can afford anybody else.
Right.
Yeah. We have a role. We can't afford to hire anybody else. Get in there.
Kevin Smith played Silent Bob because he needed someone to play Silent Bob. Like,
but he didn't talk, so that worked.
I thought Bogdanovich was fine in it. It was
I thought so too. He was fine. He was fine.
Actually, he brought that kind of weird East Coast aesthete to it. A little bit of like.
Was great.
Yeah, he was great.
Funny, he was charming.
You know what's funny is
he gets that lovely monologue in the middle. That's just. It's like God, just listen. It's like James Earl Jones. Just I do nothing but listen to you talk for an hour.
It's also typage too. He's talking about himself. He's talking about his real career. So that honesty just goes right to the screen.
There's sort of a thematic statement when he holds up the newspaper, which has a mass shooter headline. This is what scares people today, not painted monsters. So wonderful.
Well, you should have in the voice. This is what's good, but not.
And then the shootout at the end of the
previously done the Grinch, right? voiceover for the Grinch.
Right, the Grinch was 69, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I think maybe it might have been earlier than this.
I thought it was 66. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're
a little bit earlier. It's a little bit earlier.
But
I wanted to point out on the craft front, excuse me, Chris, that there's no score for this movie, and the only time there's music is when the clips from The Terror are playing at the beginning and end, and
or the car radio.
On the car radio, which goes back to
which we need to bring up. Which we need to bring up later, actually, for the last picture show.
We're going to talk a lot about music in the last picture show.
And also, even in the car, it's not until the end or the last part where he's driving around where you hear actual songs on the radio, because they're playing music, but the DJ is talking over it.
Real John Steele.
Yeah.
93 KHJ. I listened to it.
Well, and you also have like that's what I love about both. That's what I love about both these movies, and I fucking love a movie that has no score music like so much.
Yeah, like
when you don't have to rely on, and like I actually just showed my son The Birds for the first time. The Birds has not one note of music in it.
What?
Not one.
Why did I not notice that?
No Bernard Herrmann? No Bernard Herrmann? No?
Nothing. Watch it again.
What?
So the only music in The Birds is when the children are singing inside the schoolhouse.
That annoying song they sing.
Yeah, but it starts building up the tension. But there's not one note of music in The Birds. And this film too, like I love when you can make a film, especially if it's like a thriller like this or like The Birds, where you can build tension. You can pace things out where you don't have to have fucking music guiding you and telling you when to be scared or when to be on edge. And like, and we'll get to it in the picture show, but you know, Bogdanovich, I love how he also worked in, like when the guy first walks into the house, there's a commercial on for Anatomy of a Murder. It's like amazing. It's like all this great, which is also a fucking tremendous film. So he's got all this pop culture shit always going on, you know.
Otto Preminger.
I'm still stuck on the whole idea. There's no music in The Birds. I swear there could have been music in The Birds, but there wasn't. So not like somebody going bird.
Check it out again. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Like that. Okay.
But then the music from The Terror, while he's shooting everybody at the drive-in, becomes the tension of the movie is underscored by that music, which is great. Because you know what made me think of was last week the whole thing about Tad's Two Picks, where we had the reality of the cage fighting movie versus the total fantasy of the hero. So that's kind of what was being contrasted in Targets too. It's like, you know, there's horror on screen and there's horror off screen.
Literally coming through the screen. Like the horror coming through.
That was a great edit. That was a great edit.
Well, so I just look, Bogdanovich is the fucking editor on this thing.
Okay, well, when they showed, so however they faked the, you know, they had the hole and they had the flames from the fireplace around the hole, and then his barrel, and then it cuts to full frame of, you know, the fire and the scene and the terror. It was seamless. It was seamless. It looked great.
The entire last 20 minutes at the drive-in, I thought was masterfully done.
It's a tour de
force. Completely transcended how little money they, with the exception of like 20 minutes of the freaking projectionist.
And he really sold it.
Really good.
He really sold it with. Do you remember the slow dissolve back to the empty fucking parking lot, but just the white Mustang?
That
white
was a great ending.
Still there.
Do you know fucking drive-in too?
All right, Dad.
Go ahead.
I didn't like this movie as much as you guys did. I liked it, but it felt cheap to me. It felt padded to me, and it was really jarring to me when they started spending money on it. No one talks except for the main characters and the guy in the gun shop until you get to the theater, and then all of a sudden there's extras. Like it really felt, the movie felt really empty to me, and I said bleak before, and the bleakness is good, and I like that. I think it's well done, but it felt empty. It felt lifeless in a way. The Karloff stuff had a life and was touching at times and had heart. The other part of it, it felt no life at all. And someone's going to say that was a choice that he made. I think it was also money. And
well, he's not writing in other characters though. I mean, the characters that are in there are the ones that are talking.
Well, no. Supposedly Sam Fuller told him to save his money.
Right, save all the money for the end. And it feels like that.
Yeah.
Like and it took it down a little bit for me. Like again, I'm still positive on this movie. I'll definitely watch it again, but like I just wanted to mention that I have some issues with this because it we talked, I mean, people last week were talking about how, fighting felt cheap and you can do better things with small amounts of money than what they did. I don't agree with you on that, but in this case I agree with you. Like I think you could have done better things. Like maybe they didn't need as many driving scenes, maybe they didn't need, stuff like that. They could have done something else, or they could have made it shorter.
They definitely didn't have a lot of money because they used that GTO blue, that dark blue GTO, like 12 times.
Yep.
No, I'm gonna back you up, Ted. I thought that the low budget and all the interior stuff and the set in the hotel, it was distracting to me because it was obviously thrown together for nothing, and they're doing their best. Every actor's walking around looking out windows with nothing behind them and things like that, and it kind of kept pulling me out of the movie a little bit because it was so cheap. I was like, you could have actually shot this in location and actually made this really feel like a real film. But the bleakness, especially the interiors of like the house where the guy lived, the shooter lived, it kind of was a reinforcing thing. It looked bleak and cheap and weird. And it put me in a state where I was thinking, well, this is kind of depressing, but it was. So it kept reinforcing how bleak and horrible that thing was. And so you use that low budget to kind of make a statement in some ways.
I wish the guy's family had some heart to them. Like I didn't care when they got killed.
I'll give you that.
I don't think that matters. Yeah, exactly.
It matters to me. I would have liked to have more of an investment in what was going on.
There's no one in the film particularly, or at least in that storyline that you are supposed to. He's making fun of, or not making fun, but he's sending up, sort of an idea of a human life, not actual humans.
But
right?
the wife didn't do anything wrong, and I think she genuinely loves him. It's just not expressed well.
I don't know. I disagree. It all worked for me. The cheap stuff worked for me because I think this is working on another level. I don't think it's working on a be realistic all the time level. I mean, yes, he's capturing some realism of this kind of horrible tragedy, but I think he's working on the fakeness that is America, the fakeness of the idea of the quote unquote American dream. He's and just like we'll get into more of it in the last picture show, but this is a great double feature because he's really commenting hard on just how fucking phony we are and just how fucking, that we have this idyllic picture of what life is supposed to be like in various different forms, and none of them hold salt. Like none of them have, and he's just ripping them apart. And so it doesn't really matter if they are quote unquote real people or you feel something for them. What you're feeling, what you're supposed to identify with is the representation that those characters have for our culture, and that's just ripped away.
I understand what you're saying, but making me not care less about a character is never going to make me more invested in a movie.
I like the fact you use the term phony. It reminded me of Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
Is this like a violent version of Catcher in the Rye?
A little bit. Yeah. He's what Holden Caulfield really would have been like.
Right? I know. That's
Holden Caulfield 5 years later.
Yeah, this is what Holden Caulfield grows up to be.
Post-Vietnam.
Yeah, they send the main character to Vietnam and it comes back all fucked up.
Oh, I mean,
I think a part of the reason I really like this film is because I saw it probably in 71 or 72 on television, and I just bonded with it immediately.
Wow.
I'm willing to overlook everything.
Yeah, that's how I felt, Jim. I was like, he's got something. This is something.
Yeah, I kind of fell in love with it.
Me too.
And more so on the Boris Karloff storyline than on the Psycho killer.
That's genuinely human and touching and all the things.
I don't know what it says about me, but I fell in love with the Psycho shooter storyline immediately.
Yeah, well, you're the horror movie guy, Jared. I wanted to point out one scene, which is just when I really kind of sat down and was like, okay. And that was about 3 scenes in where they've already done the scene in the projection room, in the screening room, and Karloff's character, Byron Orlock, has decided he doesn't want to do his public appearance and he's not making any more pictures. And then what's his name? Ted sits down with him and his assistant at the restaurant,
Right.
and has to get the phone.
Oh, the
brought over
telephone.
to the
That was a great
table.
scene.
That is a great scene, and Karloff is just killing it. It's like Ted's like, he knows you're here, and Boris Karloff goes, I am here.
yeah. It's great.
Well, I also like when he's like, you talk to him and he just takes the phone, hangs up.
Yeah.
He says, "What does he say? I went to Harvard Law.
I graduated magna cum laude. I'm gonna go get drunk,
and now I'm doing this for a living."
Right. Yeah. When he turns around, he goes, "Okay, well, I'll leave you alone because I'm gonna go get drunk." That was pretty great.
I'm gonna go get drunk now.
And he says about the guys to Ted's boss, if he's so interested in the welfare of the people, tell him to stop making pictures.
Yeah. No, it's great.
I'd never seen it. I was glad that I had an excuse to.
Same here.
And also the Bogdanovich's girlfriend, I guess she was of Asian descent, was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful woman.
And
actress.
she died at 40.
I mean, no.
She was in a couple of things and gone.
Yeah.
She was a good actress too.
She was a knockout. She was a knockout.
Really, yeah, they were making too many like Chinese jokes about her, but it was good though.
Yeah, some of it kind of felt like
for a '60s movie. I thought it handled the whole race thing.
No,
actually it did.
And notice she gets pissed off at him and leaves.
Yeah,
like she's like, and he tries to say sorry as she's leaving.
She's like, he was an actual character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We talk about Karloff's tan for a second.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
That man been outside for like way too long.
George Hamilton level, man.
Man, he was in his backyard for a decade. Getting
he fell asleep. He fell asleep in
Trump
the
looked
bed.
like an albino.
I know. He looked definitely burned up.
Yeah,
to a crisp.
A little crispy.
I mean, he was gonna die in a couple of years. Let's give him a break. No,
yeah,
but
I don't have to worry about skin cancer. Here I am. Just take me now.
Nothing left to lose.
Was that them putting makeup on top of his already extremely dark complexion?
Yes. I'm not entirely sure.
Because whoever their makeup artist was probably like, what the fuck, man?
I can't add anything to this. This is like he's his own effect.
If it's, I will say, if it's true, if the IMDb is true and that this was a movie that was thrown together in a hot minute because, like, yeah, Bogdanovich lets you make a movie, but you need to do this and you need to do this. Like, again, movie has no business being as good as it is.